welcome to Jessica's Creative Spot. My name is Jessica, and this is where I share the various things that I've been creative with. So, today we're going to start with finished objects. I am going to both apologise and not apologise, because the pants that I made for my daughter are clean and most of the way dry. However, the jumper is definitely dirty. It's one of those ones of she was wearing it and it didn't get in the wash, and the life of a 5-year-old. Anywho, so these were a fun one to do. I said to my family at dinner, it's a $60 jumper and a $40 pair of pants, and it cost about $5 to make because the fabric was given to me. This purple rib I got, I don't know where. There's a little bit of elastic in here and thread. And the pattern, which I already had. So, what do I want to say about these? The pants are going good. We needed to slim down the leg quite a bit, which is why they've got an interesting shape. Next time I think I'll just slim the whole pattern down, so make it just skinnier from the hips down to the ankle, because that's how she likes her trousers. This hoodie I have had to fix. Is it this one or the other one? No, it's this one. I noticed that it had come undone a little bit at the wrist, and so I stitched that. And then the other day I noticed, oh look, it's come undone there. So that's a good example of why you shouldn't just overlock your seams to sew them, because in this particular terry knit, enough stress on it is enough for the edge to unravel and make a hole. So yeah, I need to fix that up. Okay, what else do we have? I don't remember if I've shown you this or not. This is a crochet necklace that I did with bead crochet. So this is my first ever lot of bead crochet. I followed a tutorial. I will link it in the description. And I really like her tutorial because she does the starting and she does the finishing, which is all very well knowing how to do the bit in the middle, but getting started, learning how to finish it off so that it actually looks good at the start and the end, is just as important. Yeah. So that's that one. I have a belt that I made because I was doing backstrap weaving, and then I saw this fabric in my stash and I was like, ooh, that would make quite a good belt. So not only can I tie it to wear it, but I can also have it behind me and tie the ends to the front stick of backstrap weaving. So this would become the back strap for that weaving. Next up, we should do the backstrap weaving, shouldn't we? So this is my first piece of weaving that isn't go up and down through the threads as a child. Actually opening sheds and things. As you can see, I got better and worse and better again as I went the length. Not that I know which end was the start and which end is the finish. So this is one where it's enough band to go around a hat. It can work as a headband, but not quite long enough to do much of anything else. Yeah, but quite proud of that. I will say, if you're going to start with weaving and backstrap weaving, don't start with fluffy wool. The wool was catching on the wool, so every time I passed the threads of yarn next to each other, they would grip onto each other, the fibres would catch, and so I'd have to unstick it, which made it a lot slower going. Continuing on with weaving, our Spinners and Weavers group has a challenge that they put out every year, and it's a fun challenge. If you don't do it, that's fine, but you pick out 2 colours and 1 method. So the methods could be crochet, knit, weave, felt. Are there others? There might be others. Those are the main ones. Oh, and spin, of course. And my colours were brown and purple. I was going, ooh, how do I put brown and purple together with it looking decent and not look really weird? And so I got some of this chocolate brown from my friend, and I had this purple boucle, and again, it has lumpy bits. It caused problems. Why am I not surprised? And so this is one that in some lights it looks like it's purple and black, in other lights it looks like it's brown and silver. I think in this light, maybe natural light, you can see that it's brown and purple. And yeah, originally I had it to the middle stripe, and then I started weaving and I was like, that's way too skinny. So then I put on the other half of it. Yeah, that's that one. I think the other finished object I have is a very special project. This one here. This is a birthday present for my niece. She's turning 1, and so I made this originally. Originally my family wanted, because I brought out some patterns and said which one should we do. Originally they wanted one that we thought was a hoodie, and then I was reading through the pattern and I'm going, I don't think I can do this on the knitting machine. I think this one would have to be hand knit. And then the hood wasn't included anyway, so I was like, I'm not doing this pattern. I only have 2 weeks to make this. I'm not going to be hand knitting something in that time. And so I found some knitting machine patterns, or knitting patterns that would work for the machine, at a second-hand store a few weeks back, and so I just got the 1 to 2 year old size for that. And yeah, just to make it more complicated, my family's like, I was like, what colour should we do it? Rainbow! Okay. I was so happy that my coloured buttons that I have in my stash, that they fit, and oh my goodness, does this blue match. It is so gorgeous. The others are all off a little bit, but that blue, yeah. So it was an adventure making it. The front band, so it was knit up the front, and then shaping for the neck and the armhole, and then binding off for the shoulder, and then you keep knitting the band around the back of the neck. I found that quite interesting. And I've done a ribbing pattern, so it'll stretch out nice and wide, but also shrink in and hold snugly. And so 3 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. So that's the pattern there. The other thing I did on my knitting machine, I'll need to insert a picture somewhere, is I got the colour work working, the Fairyale colour work working on my knitting machine. I posted a short about how I problem solved that one, but now I can do 2 colours on the knitting machine, so that brings a whole host of opportunities. Yeah, one of my friends is doing a Fairyale steeking workshop in October, learning to steek, And so I was like, would you like a sample to practice on before you cut up your hand knit item? And she was happy enough to take one of those, so it gave me a good excuse to get my colour work working. Right, I think that's all the finished objects, apart from the yarn spinning. So I don't remember if I've shown you this or not. I went to a spin in at Tally Ho, and however much you spun of their seconds you could take home. So I spun this one. I have shown you this because I told you about the Cosmo Merino. So I've got this all balled up now, and this was whatever was left over after I had plied up my regular. So I figure I'm doing this for the cuffs and this for the rest of the mittens for my son. And then I've got this purple, and this was quite an interesting one because I don't know if you can see in the middle there, the flecks of the colour are more vibrant when I was just pulling it apart by hand, as opposed to when I took out some hand carders and actually carded it and blended it a bit more. That made quite an interesting difference. And the Silk and Merino, so gorgeous. Not sure what I'm going to use this for. That's okay. Since we're still on knitting, let's keep going on knitting. Earlier in the week we did a knitting skills day with Spinners and Weavers, and so you come along, various people were willing to teach various different things, and we just learnt off each other. So this was one of my goes at, not even fully done, trying a tubular cast on, also known as an Italian cast on. So it's basically starting with a knit stitch and a purl stitch. I wasn't passing the yarn forward when I was slipping the purl stitches, and so it wasn't quite turning out how it was meant to. So this is my first go. And it looks like garter stitch as opposed to ribbing that edge, because I didn't pass the yarn forward when I was slipping those stitches. I cast off with crochet cast off because I knew how to do that, and then I asked if someone could teach me how to do cables, because while I have done cables on with crochet, I have not done cables with knitting. So I was able to do a little bit of this before I had to leave, so that was quite fun. I did practice the cast off for the Italian cast off to match the cast on. However, because I wasn't ready to bind off in this one, I just practiced on another lady's, which she was happy for me to do. With the beaded crochet, I still had beads left over on the strand, and so I decided I would try to do it a little bit differently. So I'm not sure if I kept any of the slip stitch ones. I think I didn't, because I didn't like how it was sitting. So in US terms, this is done with single crochet. For standard crochet beadwork, the most common ones are a slip stitch or a single crochet. I tried slip stitch and it didn't sit how I wanted it to, so I went back to single crochet, and then I tried decreasing, and it's made the spiral go a little bit tighter. I'm not sure if you can see from there. So it's just changed the angle of the spiral. and that's just from it working up. So this is size 40 crochet cotton, mercerized cotton. This is a 1.25mm crochet hook, nice and small to help and go in between those beads. I will try projects where I add the beads in as I go, but that's not a now thing. I am getting further on this cardigan. You got the right side facing. So we've got one sleeve and most of the way around the back. I'm not sure if I need to do it to size or not, because I'm already at the other shoulder, but this middle section is meant to be longer than the ribbing, and it's shorter than the ribbing, so I'll just see how I go with that one. So yes, making progress, but it's slow because I've gotten bored with the pattern, and I've gotten bored with having to need to have the pattern, because it's not, because it changes every second row. Every second row is just purling back, but because the pattern changes, my brain isn't memorizing it. I have to figure out which one I'm on, which stitch I'm up to, and where I go from there. Yeah, so that makes it slower because I have to have the paper out each time. Okay, while I was away, I took some bamboo cotton with me, and I decided I would start crocheting a scarf. So this is, I'm pretty sure, moss stitch. US terms, it's a single crochet through the gap of, around the chain of the previous, and then chain one. So the miniature version of a granny stitch. So if a granny stitch is 3 doubles and then 3 chains, this is a third of the size of that. It's 1 single and 1 chain. And I was doing great, and then I was like, I'm bored. So I put in a row where I skipped one of the single crochets, and I put an extra chain in its place. And so I got that pattern, and then I decided, well, I may as well do various other patterns as I go. That one is a cluster stitch. Is it cluster or a puff stitch? Sorry, puff stitch. That one is lemon peel. So that's alternating single crochet and double crochet. And then as you go back, you do double crochet into the single crochet and single crochet into the double crochet. This one, I did a twisted stitch. So you know how I talked about cabling? That's basically cabling. Yeah. Went across to the next one, chain one, back to the previous one. And that looks quite nice on both sides. What else is there? Yeah, that's as far as I've gotten on that one. But nice travel project, because, you know, that's as much space as it takes up. Do I have anything else in here? No. Wow. Chocolate book, Bible, notebook. Regular things for a handbag. Okay. Equipment that I've gotten since last time. I got a shuttle, which, as you can see, it still has the yarn from my ankle weaving. And I got a mini ankle loom. And I saw this in a lot of freebies that was getting distributed, and I was like, it's so cute. And it's small, which means it's easier to store, because the club one is about that big. So I'm not sure how long I'll be able to get, but with all these pegs, I imagine I can get a decent length. very excited to have that and try that. And it's just been sitting on my windowsill like that because I have decent width windowsills. But yeah, the fact that it can fit on my windowsill, absolutely fantastic. I've got my pads sewn up. I've not been game enough to do the domes. I did say I wasn't sure about that. So yeah, these are almost ready to go. I do like that I got that darker blue flower with that one. So yeah, and I even managed to match some thread based on what colours I had handy. That's purple. It's not actually blue. I don't know if you'll pick that up on camera. But yeah, you're almost done. Almost. Okay, my coat. I've got it most of the way cut out. And I say most of the way because I could sew it up as it is now. However, I was thinking of doing an interlining with polar fleece to make it extra warm. So this is the lining of the skirt. I barely had enough for it, as in it might be slightly skinny in a couple places. Yeah, and then the bodice has this black satin lining, the bodice and the sleeves. I was pleased that I had enough of that. Yes. See, I've got the interfacing ironed on and everything, so it really is a case of figure out which pieces need that polar fleece, cut it out, and then cut it out and start sewing. I could probably do with another practice doing the bound buttonholes, because you know, I practiced the first time and it was okay. I practiced the second time and it was no good. So I should probably practice a third time and get it good before I work on the front of my jacket. However, I do have plenty of that red left, and while I would not want to I wouldn't want to have to cut out another front, I've got enough there that I can if I need to. Okay, something I did the other night, I'm very, very excited for this. I cut out this dress. So, get out the patterns, putting this skirt with this top, except it's not quite this top. I have lengthened the sleeve. So I had a look at the pattern that I had there and was like, okay, tried on the top that I made previously. It needs to be 6 inches longer. Okay, let's do that then. And so yeah, hopefully this will be alright. I imagine because this has a dropped waist, it's not actually on the waistline. I imagine I'm going to have a little bit of trouble when I attach the top to the skirt. So what I'm thinking of doing is getting the top part sewn up, and then sew up the skirt, and then from there attach the skirt to the bodice so that I can get that seam in the right place. I did need to change the waist on this because I'm just going to be putting elastic in so it cinches in and looks gathered, rather than that bit being smooth and me having to put in a zip. I figure elastic to bring it in at the waist, that way it can just go over my head, come in at the waist, and it'll be good. So this, I've even got the elastic cut out. That's how much I got to. I've got bias binding cut of matching fabric to go around the neck and no, I don't need it for the wrists, to go around the neck. I've got some fabric cut on the straight of grain to go on the inside for that elastic channel, and I've got the elastic cut out. Like, yay me. So yeah, that was an evening well spent. I think I had Bianca's video playing in the background about, was she doing the sleeves or draping the bodice on herself? I think she was draping her bodice on herself, and then I switched to the one where she was doing the sleeve as well. So I had Bianca in the background talking about drafting and pattern making while I was cutting out my pattern pieces for that one. So that was quite nice. And I think that's all I have. There's probably things that I've missed because I was going around going, what else have I worked on? Oh yeah, that. What else have I worked on? Oh yeah, that. So there's probably things I've missed. If there's anything from previous videos that you would like me to do an update on, just comment below. If there's any of these projects that you're like, yeah, work on that one, again, comment below. And yeah, I say have a great day and an even better sleep, because sleep is so good. So yeah, thanks for coming. Bye. Wait, and what happened with it? It was there, it hooked on my top. It flung all over there.